Welcome to Civilization Stories, where we explore alternatives to history through the lens of the world's most addictive video game. While traveling through China, I thought it would be fun to play as China. But since I was tracking the progress of the Test of Time update, I realized I hadn't played Civ IV in a long while, so I thought I'd give it another chance. A couple of quick things about this Civilization story. I thought I knew Civ IV pretty well from having played it a lot years and years ago, but after playing recently, I realized that all of my old Civ IV wisdom was obsolete. I was pretty much a novice again. Civ IV is also much more difficult than modern Civ games. I started and stopped a few games that I will never show. But basically it went, I thought I was doing really well, kicking ass and taking names, only to have a very advanced neighbor suddenly decide that they'd had enough with me and invade with a stack of soldiers so fearsome that they ransacked my cities in no time flat. I made one small change to my UI where it showed visible enemy troop movements. Previously, a stack would show up virtually out of nowhere and suddenly my cities would be in the hands of the enemy. This one graphical shift at least gave me a heads up when a stack was nearby, allowing me to be cautious and plan accordingly should I ever be betrayed. Again, I find Civ IV much more difficult than more recent Civ games, so as I relearn the game in my spare time, I'm playing on Prince. I could probably get away with playing on King, but Prince does offer a nice challenge. I'm playing on a Terra map, which I find is one of the best map types, which I hope they find a way to add to Civ VII at some point. As you'll see, Civ IV is still a great history teller. So let's go. The Chinese capital was founded next to an inland river delta that promised to one day be a major producer of wine and spices. Exploring to the south, China and the Celts made first contact with each other. Seeing a single warrior protecting the city of Bibracte, Chinese warriors took a risk and invaded Celtic territory and smashed the city into dust the very next turn. The Celts were no more, and China had taken a great leap in the course of history. In 2760 BC, China made first contact with Mali. In 2520 BC, mystics of Beijing built Stonehenge. In 1920 BC, China and the Inca made first contact. 40 years later, ivory prospectors founded the city of Shanghai. And in 1600 BC, China and Carthage made first contact. 80 years later, China made first contact with Byzantium. Expanding their empire eastward, China founded the city of Guangzhou in 975 BC. In 775 BC, China built the Great Wall, viewed best just outside of Beijing. How fitting. In 425 BC, China founded the city of Nanjing along the floodplains of the Yangtze River. It would become a key strategic fulcrum in the Chinese Empire, responsible for mining iron ore. 50 years later, Joan of Arc, the Chinese great prophet, founded Christianity in the city of Shanghai. It would become a religion that would unite all Chinese people. In 100 BC, Chinese architects built the Temple of Artemis, also in the city of Shanghai. And 25 years later, Zealots of Shanghai reformed Chinese religion and founded Confucianism. In 175 AD, the Apostolic Palace was built in the city of Beijing. Feeling confident and looking to expand the empire eastward, China invaded Mali. The incursion was short-lived and a ceasefire agreed just 180 years later. In 720 AD, China founded the port city of Xi'an. By 820 AD, Lord Macaulay, in his seminal work on national wealth, determined that China was the wealthiest nation on earth. In 920 AD, China built the Mausoleum of Mausolus in the city of Shanghai. By 1010, armed now with catapults and mounted elephant units, China was slightly more prepared to go to war. It was time to renew hostilities with Mali. A small group of Chinese forces marched into the Malinese frontier town of Aragost just 10 years after the start of the war. And 10 years later, China's northern army captured Tadmeka. In 1070, the Chinese prophet Atisha commissioned the building of the Church of the Nativity in the city of Shanghai. Later that year, after successfully beating back the Malinese, a ceasefire was restored. Mali's problems were worsening when, shortly after ending the war with China, the Inca declared war on them. Seeing that the Mali were weak, when Huang Capac came to the Chinese asking for help in the war, the Chinese were only too eager to help. However, the Malinese soon enlisted the help of Byzantium to aid them in their struggle against the Chinese-Incan coalition. In 1180 AD, China's northern army captured the Malinese city of Wallata. In 1220 AD, hoping to promote Chinese Christian scholarship, the University of Shankora was built in the city of Shanghai. Marching deep into Malinese territory, satisfied with their gains, China and Mali agreed on yet another ceasefire in 1280 AD. After capturing the barbarian outpost of Zapotec, China realized that the Inca were settling lands along the southern frontier. This upset China, believing that land belonged to them. How long would the Chinese-Incan alliance hold? In 1310, China built the Parthenon in the city of Guangzhou. In 1350, Huang Capac came to the Chinese again, looking to restart the war against the Mali. This time, the Chinese refused. In 1390, China built Chichen Itza in the city of Beijing. 20 years later, Lord Macaulay published another seminal work, this time ranking the most powerful empires on Earth. China was fourth, still behind Mali, from whom they had captured cities. China's friends, the Inca, led the way. In 1440, China built Angkor Wat in the city of Shanghai. That same year, the arrival of Christopher Columbus in the city of Beijing started a golden age for the Chinese. Although Sumer were the first nation to research liberalism, in 1505, China discovered education and entered the Renaissance. The Mali founding of the city of Aulil was accepted by the Chinese as an act of war, and hostilities were renewed in 1550. The city was destroyed soon after. 5 years into this new war, the Chinese great prophet Mahavira helped build the Kongmiao in the city of Shanghai. 15 years after that, the great Chinese scientist Al-Kindi built the first Chinese Academy of Learning, also in the city of Shanghai. In 1580, Chinese boats made first contact with land across the Great Ocean. The next major action of the war was the Chinese defense of the city of Wallata in 1590. Meanwhile, China, looking to establish increased contact with this new continent, founded the port city of Chengdu. When a mediator emerged in 1605 to broker a peace between China and Mali, both sides agreed. When Justinian came to China after the destruction of Dorylaeum, looking for peace 5 years later, Chinese leadership agreed. The world was at peace, for now. In 1680, Chinese pilgrims established the first colony in the New World and named it Hangzhou. In 1700, China established their second colony in the New World, Tianjin. Right about then, China was learning that Sumer had already established a presence in the New World as well. In 1705, Tacitus determined that China, though a vast and mighty empire, were well behind when it came to technological advancement, with the Sumerians leading the way. It was becoming obvious that Sumer's influence in the north of the Americas was significant. Seeing the situation in the New World forced the hand of Chinese leadership. It was time to make a significant incursion into Mali territory. War began once again in 1730. As a result of China's war declaration, Byzantium came to the aid of Mali. Wadan, built on the ruins of Aulil, was captured 5 years into the war. Chinese spycraft in Kumbisale led to a temporary revolt, opening the doors to the city with Chinese troops charging down from the hills. Local garrisons were powerless to stop the invasion, and the city fell moments later. While still at war, China built Versailles in the city of Guangzhou. 2 years later, the core of the Chinese army marched on the Malinese capital city of Timbuktu. In 1818, Chinese soldiers fighting in the New World captured the barbarian stronghold of Jute. 2 years later, the main force of the Chinese army captured the Malinese city of Niani. In 1828, a small division of Chinese soldiers in the north captured the Malinese stronghold of Agades. In 1838, the Chinese army captured Takeda, pushing the Chinese Empire right up against the border of Byzantium. Justinian was stingy, but with the Chinese army now at his doorstep, he was finally, after centuries, ready to make peace. The peace didn't last long. Once the army was modernized and a corps of trebuchets upgraded to cannons, it was time for the Chinese to invade Byzantium. With the navy bombarding Nicaea's defenses from the sea, the city fell in 1874. In 1876, after researching democracy, the Chinese government instituted major reforms to its government. Now operating deep into Malinese territory, the main Chinese army captured Gao, putting the Malinese Empire on the brink of total collapse. In 1894, Diyeni fell to the Chinese. The Malinese Empire was no more. In order to right their economy, the Chinese agreed to a peace deal with Byzantium soon after. In order to have a steady source of the new wondrous resource of oil, Chinese settlers established the New World colony of Shandong. I had had a lot of fun playing this game up until this point, and up until then my game had lasted about 5 hours, played over 3 sessions. My next session lasted 5 hours. Men over 40 will appreciate how difficult that is to accomplish at our age. But I did it. 5 uninterrupted hours of Civ bliss. So hold on to your hats because this is where it gets interesting. By this point in the game, with most of the New World colonized, predominantly by China and Sumer, Babylonia, a New World nation led by Hammurabi, had gained their independence as a nation but were still a vassal of Sumer. China decided to hold on to her colonies because I did not know how to grant them their independence. I'll figure it out at some point. In 1918, with their discovery of rocketry, China entered the modern era. They were late to it, but China had had a robust and idle workforce. By 1928, railroads were being constructed throughout the empire. Though it was obvious from looking at the map in 1931, Tacitus pointed out the obvious and declared to the world that the Chinese Empire was the largest on Earth. In 1948, the Chinese took flight. In order to make headway along a particular path to victory, after 50 years of peace, the Chinese decided to invade the Byzantine archipelago. Though Byzantium had a robust and large navy that outnumbered the Chinese, their ships of the line and frigates were now obsolete against Chinese destroyers. The Chinese army made landfall and captured Adrianople in 1959. China completed its Apollo program in 1961. That same year, the naval battle in the Bay of Adrianople was the death knell for Byzantium as its fleet was annihilated by Chinese destroyers. In 1964, the Chinese army captured Laodicea. Fighting by the shores of Byzantine cities was intense, but by 1970, Chinese troops had seized the capital of Constantinople. The counteroffensive from Byzantium came. Chinese veterans fought valiantly, but in the end, Byzantine numbers were simply too great and Justinian and his forces took back the city. In the field, Chinese soldiers were unmatched, defeating Byzantine soldiers in uncountable numbers on the fringes of the capital. In 1975, China took control of Constantinople once again. In 1977, America gained independence from the Inca, electing FDR as their leader. In 1979, in the capital city of Beijing, China brought rock and roll to the world. Moments later, the Chinese army captured the Byzantine city of Thessalonica. It led to Justinian's full surrender and the capitulation of the Byzantine Empire at the hands of China. In 1981, Machiavelli published his great work on the most cultured civilizations. China ranked second behind Sumer. Gilgamesh and Sumer, a great and ancient civilization, though small, with its many alliances and vassals spread across the globe, suddenly represented the greatest threat to Chinese hegemony. Would Machiavelli's seminal work spark a schism within the two great civilizations' long-held alliance? Exploring the victory conditions for the first time, and China understood that a path through world domination, or an expedition to the stars, represented the most likely paths to victory. But would China, with its massive sprawling empire, have the productivity necessary to accomplish either of these great feats? The most likely path to victory for China would likely go through Sumer. Understanding and deftly maneuvering through the complex political intricacies was China's first step in putting together a plan to move toward victory. Sumer had signed no defensive agreements with any other major nations. Though culturally strong, could they be militarily weak? In 1984, the Chinese great prophet Tsongkhapa, with a coalition from China's great spy network, sparked a golden age. In 1988, in the city of Shanghai, China built Cristo Redentor. The hour was drawing nigh. A conflict that would alter the fortunes of everyone on the globe was taking shape. It began in 1990 with China canceling its long-held agreements with Sumer and declaring war. Chinese forces in the New World began by bombarding Babylonian targets. Having taken up a strategic position using their alliance with the Inca, a precise and well-targeted spy mission in Corihuarachina allowed one major force of the Chinese army to swiftly defeat the garrison there and capture the city. The next year, Chinese forces fighting in the New World captured the Babylonian stronghold of Nippur. By the end of that year, the Babylonian fleet destroyed all of the Chinese ships in the Eastern Ocean. Attempting to keep the peace, Huang and the Inca established the United Nations. Soon after, Chinese forces captured the Babylonian port of Borsippa. Despite Huang spearheading the initiative, it was Emotional Husky, leader of the Chinese, who won the seat as Secretary General of the UN. In 1998, Chinese armor captured the Babylonian strategic stronghold of Zabalam. A clear path could now be drawn between Chinese colonies of the north and south. The fall of Zabalam struck a major blow to Sumerian ambitions and vaulted the Inca up the global power rankings. In 1999, another courageous and well-timed espionage mission opened the doors of Bad Tabira, allowing the Chinese army to march in almost unopposed. Sumer were proving how weak and frail their empire truly was. Focused too singularly on a cultural campaign, by the year 2000, their cities were still being defended by forces whose technologies had long since fallen into obsolescence. Chinese troops, buoyed by another golden age, captured Eridu, one of Sumer's oldest and most populous cities, with ease. Moments later, Chinese tanks fighting in the New World stormed into the Babylonian city of Mycenaean. China was on the brink of achieving its goal. The next year, Babylon fell to the Chinese. The Babylonian strategic city of Eshnunna, sandwiched in the desert mountains, fell to the Chinese in 2003. Sumerian forces fighting in the New World pushed back the Chinese away from their colony of Akshak. In 2005, voting members of the UN agreed upon a nuclear non-proliferation treaty. That same year, mystics of China were delighted to learn that Christian Confucianism was the most widely practiced religion in all the world. Though better defended than other cities, the Sumerian capital, Uruk, fell to the Chinese in 2006. The next year, Akshak, one of Sumer's few remaining colonies in the New World, also fell to the Chinese. The nearby Babylonian city of Sakai fell moments later. With Babylonia now divided into north and south, the city of Polynesian was left isolated and exposed to Chinese bombers. Chinese troops in the New World South captured the city in 2008. In 2011, architects and engineers of China built the Three Gorges Dam near the bend in the river through the Chinese-controlled Malinese city of Walata. Later that year, veteran Chinese forces captured the Sumerian city of Kish. And moments later, the Chinese prophet, Chuang Tzu, gathered scientists and spies to spearhead yet another golden age. In 2013, Chinese armor fighting in the New World captured the Babylonian city of Dar Kurigalzu. In 2015, a second armored division fighting in the north took Opis. In 2018, Chinese forces captured Lagash. Traditional Sumerian culture had now been completely pushed out of the Old World. Chinese influence extended from coast to coast. In 2023, the Chinese Northern Armored Division captured the city of Mari, splintering the last Babylonian cities into the far corners of the continent. The next year, Sippar was captured by the Chinese. Although they were leading the race into outer space, the Chinese felt they were on the brink of victory by world domination. And in 2024, the Northern Armored Division captured LSR. And in 2025, after a formidable last stand, Chinese forces captured Larak, the last of Sumer's major colonies in the New World. Their once great civilization was now reduced to a handful of mostly uninhabited Arctic islands. That same year, the Chinese Northern Armored Division captured the Babylonian city of Shushan. And in 2027, China captured Isin. With their spacecraft nearing completion and their army advancing upon the last of their New World objectives, China was declared the winner by a domination victory in 2028. Civ IV still provides a pretty damn satisfying experience. It's amazing that 20 years on and the newer Civ games, while all still great, are really only marginally better than this version. The game feels very full and complete and without any major gaps or annoyances. I never play and find myself going, wow, that is dumb. Now, keep in mind that I did have quite a few misfires, games that I never bothered to finish. Making that one graphical change was huge. AI aerial strikes were still a mystery, and I had to get a bit used to reading the reports, but understanding where major troop movements were occurring on the edges of my territory were vital to me being able to anticipate the AI's intent and maneuver my own troops to counter. Playing on a terra map is especially satisfying, and having that mysterious landmass across the ocean to compete over is one game mechanic that really pulls you in. What makes it all the more satisfying is, assuming that the game is competitive up until the point where it comes to start colonizing the New World, it makes the later eras all the more interesting. Civ IV managed the late game probably better than any other version of Civ before or since. I had forgotten that colonies could gain independence, branch off and become civilizations in their own right. The fact that Babylonia and America showed up in this game gave the history a whole new twist. I know the human player can grant their colonies independence, but I still haven't figured it out. I will, but for now, I had fun just taking everything over. There's also something very satisfying about how the late game push towards space and the tech tree interact with one another. In other games, I often find myself having completed the tech tree long before I complete all of my space missions. But it's almost as if the tech tree in Civ IV has more branches and overall just more to research. That synergy between using production in your major cities to complete space parts as you continue to research toward the end of the tech tree, to the point where your arrival at Alpha Centauri and your completion of the tech tree almost overlap. It's nice that Civ IV can still entertain and keep me engrossed for a single uninterrupted period lasting more than 5 hours, although the whole game took probably more like 10 or 12 over 6 or 7 different sessions. At no point was I bored or just clicking to get to the next turn. Sure, at some point I did get to a stage where I felt like I was going to win, but the challenge is there, and as long as the challenge is there, so is the fun, and that's what it's all about. Go play Civ IV one of these days. It's a great game. Also, do that thing where you like and subscribe to the channel, and use the comment section to say anything you like, or do like me and howl at the moon. Ow! Thanks for watching. And remember to keep playing and making your own civilization story, your own amazing path through history, and I'll see you next time.